headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. This is From the South. I am Doris Polo. Puerto Rico's governor, Wanda Vazquez, has declared a state of emergency and activated the National Guard after a series of earthquakes, including one of magnitude 6.4, rocked the country. At least one person was killed as buildings were severely damaged, cars flattened, and power knocked out across much of the island. Public sector offices remained closed while emergency plans were implemented this Tuesday. The island has been rocked by a series of quakes in recent days, including a 5.8 magnitude trembler on Monday.
The events which we have experienced, we have communicated with the United States Geological Survey, and they have informed us that this type of movement may continue for the next few days. We must be prepared, and we must have our individual and family plans so that in the case that these events recur, we are prepared.
I feel there is a feeling of panic because we are expecting something stronger to happen, something worse and really. There is a feeling of instability and panic with people here from this town.
Iran's foreign minister has confirmed on social media that the United States has denied him a visa to enter the country for a meeting of the UN Security Council. Minister Javad Zarif tweeted that the denial of the visa is in violation of the 1947 UN Headquarters Agreement, adding that it pales in comparison to Pompeo's threat to starve Iranians, a crime against humanity, the war crime of Trump's bluster about cultural heritage, economic terrorism, and cowardly assassination. As the United Nations host country, the United States placed several restrictions on diplomats from Iran, Venezuela, and Cuba in 2019 as they try to carry out their duties at the international organization. The governments of both Russia and Venezuela denounced the restrictions at the time, suggesting that there may be other states more suited to host the UN. Hundreds of thousands of Iranians attended the late General Qasem Soleimani's funeral ceremony in his hometown of Kerman. But an unfortunate event took place during the ceremony as a stampede broke out when people tried to get a glimpse of the late general's remains. At least 32 people have been reported dead and 190 injured. As a result, Soleimani's burial has been postponed. During the procession, people carried posters of the slain general and Iranian flags, vowing revenge after Soleimani's assassination by the U.S.
I say the last word first. We will take revenge. We will take revenge, it will be hard, decisive, and we will make them regret what they did. Have faith and stay calm. It will be decisive and final.
And the Iranian parliament has passed an urgent bill declaring the U.S. military command in Washington and those acting on its behalf as terrorists. Lawmakers also approved more than $200 million in funding for defense operations.
In addition to United States Central Command and regional forces, we also identified the Pentagon among these terrorists, as well as those giving orders to assassinate General Soleimani. According to this evaluation, the U.S. sector of defense and Donald Trump himself were also identified as terrorists, and they should be punished. The third article of today's triple urgent bill was actually the allocation of €200 to enforce the Al-Qaeda forces, and it was ratified.
Our correspondent in the region, Hisham Wamnus, has the latest.
A crowd of hundreds of thousands of Iranians from different cities, religions and political views, including the military commander of the Revolutionary Guards, accompanied the body of the late General Qasem Soleimani during his funeral procession in his hometown of Keram. Millions of people in Iran and Iraq also joined in, with chants against the United States and Israel, asking for a severe response to this crime against heroes who were crucial in the fight against terrorism in the region. Protesters in the funeral procession the flags of both Iraq and Iran, showing that the people of the neighboring nations stand together and strong against the United States. The massive funeral procession was also marked by numerous red flags, symbolizing the determination of the Iranians to seek revenge. In this regard, the Supreme Council of Iran has promised that retaliation will come and alluded to 13 possible scenarios, saying that even the most gentle response would be a nightmare for the United States. Iran's parliament also approved an emergency law to take measures against the United States. Several movements in the region have vowed to continue Soleimani's fight against terrorism, imperialism, the Israeli occupation of Palestine, and will work to expel U.S. forces in the region.
That was our correspondent Hisham Wamnous with that report. Now, Muslim communities gathered in India's capital, New Delhi, to protest the killing of Soleimani in a U.S. airstrike. Angry demonstrators gathered outside the U.S. Embassy carrying posters and cartoons of U.S. President Donald Trump chanting, "We will avenge blood with blood."
Soleimani had pledged to wipe out ISIS from Iraq within 3 months, and he was very well on his way to do that, which the U.S. couldn't tolerate. They couldn't tolerate the spread of peace in the region. They wanted to have their influence over the Middle East through this mess.
Moving to Latin America, Panama workers are rejecting the government's proposed increase to the minimum wage. They say it's not enough to cover their basic expenses.
Following months of discussions between the government and workers, a new minimum wage has been set, but it's deemed insufficient.
The government takes us for a joke. This minimum wage does not consider the reality of Panamanian workers. It does not cover our needs or the cost of living. It's a shame. It reflects the business sector's selfishness, and it's the government that put us in this position.
At the start of the new year, the government announced a hike in the minimum wage by sector to take effect on January the 15th. In the hotel and restaurant industry, the minimum wage will increase by 1%. In the wholesale trade sector, 3%. In the banana industry, 8%. And in the mining industry, 6%.
This is a joke. A 3.3% salary increase doesn't offset the rising costs for basic goods and services. The Constitution says the minimum wage must cover a list of basic goods.
More than 50% of Panamanians receive the minimum wage, which is insufficient to cover the cost of basic goods, which stands at roughly $370 a month and goes up by $1 every month.
They are a bunch of greedy business owners. We have clearly stated that we need at least $1,040 to survive in a capitalist system like this one, where prices go up for no reason and where there are massive layoffs. We cannot accept a 3.3% increase, and we are calling on all organizations to continue protesting.
The workers' movement is demanding a general increase in wages and the creation of an organization like that which exists in the construction industry to negotiate their collective bargaining rights every 4 years.
When we come back, a former member of Guyana's parliament is facing very serious charges. Stay with us for more. Welcome back. Former Prime Minister of Barbados, Owen Arthur, will be the next chairman of regional airline Liat. Arthur replaces Dr. Jean Holder, also from Barbados, who resigned late last year. Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister, in making the announcement, said he is the right man for the job.
Recognize that there'll be a new chairman. In fact, former Prime Minister of Barbados, Owen Arthur, he will take over as the new chairman of Liat. And I have to tell you, I don't think there could be any better candidate. Owen Arthur literally would have, let's say, spent a significant amount of his prime ministerial equity ensuring the survivability of Liat. And now that it is at the crossroad again, I think, or crossroads, I think that Owen is the right person to help to lead Liat out of its difficulties.
A former member of parliament under Guyana's main opposition People's Progressive Party Civic, or PPPC, is facing charges for perverting the course of justice and sexual assault. The Director of Public Prosecutions gave instructions to charge Alistair Charlie for his alleged involvement in an incident that occurred in July 2019. Charlie is currently serving as a member of the PPPC executive, but there has been no indication of whether he intended to contest the March 2nd general election. Trinidad and Tobago's east coast is being invaded by the Portuguese man o' war, which is a highly venomous open ocean predator that resembles a jellyfish. More and more beachgoers have sought medical attention after being stung by its tentacles. Although the numbers appearing on the shoreline is large, the phenomenon of man o' war beaching is not an unusual one. Now that's according to the local Institute of Marine Affairs. Still, beachgoers are warned to be on the lookout to prevent a painful encounter with man o' wars. Brazil's mass agrarian reform movement, the MST, is holding a vigil against evictions in the southern state of Paraná. Ignacio Lemos has the details.
The Landless workers' movement has held a vigil in the state of Paraná, in the south of Brazil, as a response to the attempted evictions of 3 communities. The communities affected are the Campesino Resistance, Dorcelina Folador, and the August 1st, 2004 community. These communities of the Landless workers' movement, the MST, carry out agroecological practices which fight against the practices in Brazil of agribusiness, which uses agrotoxins, and now they risk eviction by the local government of Ratinho Jr. This government has already been one to carry out evictions of 9 landless workers' settlements in 2019, and they're once again attacking the MST with these new eviction attempts in the same state, which the MST played a fundamental role as the base of the Lula Libre Vigil, a vigil which took place outside of the jail where former President Lula da Silva was incarcerated for 580 days.
That was our correspondent Ignacio Lemos with that report. Ecuador's main workers' union has continued to question the neoliberal policies of the government of President Lenin Moreno. They say that Ecuador is currently going through its worst unemployment crisis in many years.
As Ecuador continues to sink into a worsening economic crisis, the United Workers' Front says that during the past 3 years, the unemployment rate has only gotten worse.
Out of the economically active population, which represents close to 8 million people, only 3 million have a proper job, and the rest are employed. This translates to more poverty. It means 32 Ecuadorians cross the poverty line every day. Taking into account that in Ecuador, a person who earns equal to or less than $85 a month is considered poor.
With the presence of 71 lawmakers, the National Assembly passed a tax reform on December 31st of 2019 to be enacted immediately. However, this rushed decision led to a mistake inside the presidential veto in Article 13, which affects the application of deductions on income tax.
The National Assembly did something illegal where they called for a meeting in the Assembly, evading the legislative process. What should have happened is that 30 days should have passed first so that the bill could be passed by decree, but they didn't do that. They decided to meet a day before the year's end and ordered the bill to be approved.
Economic researchers have raised alerts about the economic decisions that the government has taken and have pointed out that if the state doesn't report income, mass layoff will continue in both the public and private sectors.
It's not only about earning income, but how expenses will be collected. By taking information published by the Ministry of Finance, you can see that 2019 was a year marked by low budgets and a decrease in public investment, but also a reduction in health and education.
One of the biggest questions left by the economic policies of Lenin Moreno has been the letter of intent signed with the International Monetary Fund that until now has been kept under wraps.
Staying in Latin America, during his first 2 months in power, The president of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, launched a number of economic reforms aimed at helping the country's middle and working classes recover purchasing power. Let's take a closer look.
Days after President Alberto Fernandez took office, his economic policies started to make a positive impact across all sectors of the economy. Experts agree that citizens have already started to see improvements as well.
His measures have had a positive impact, like for example, by rolling back export duties and fixing them in place. He has made sure that in the future there won't be a risk for devaluations.
The modification of export rights for goods and services across all sectors is key in securing income that would be invested in the areas most affected by the economic crisis. According to data from researchers, with this initiative, close to $5 billion could be collected during 2020.
This is a transitional plan, and our activation plan could start once the debt is renegotiated, nonetheless by fixing prices and raising salaries during the summer. This could lead to an improved economy and our activation following the crisis.
An improved economy is a regulation over buying foreign currency, in particular the US dollar. There are also improved retirement benefits, higher state allowances for families with children, among others.
Those who benefit the most are exactly those who were the most hurt by the previous government. These measures also help small business owners. The measures focus on restarting the local economy and internal markets.
Within its first week, experts say that the government of Alberto Fernandez did a complete 180 from the previous administration by giving people their purchasing power back and by prioritizing the middle class and those most vulnerable.
Coming up, why are Libyans protesting? Don't go anywhere and you'll find out. Welcome back. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has been confirmed to lead the Spanish government as head of the country's first coalition administration. With 167 votes in favor, 165 against, and 18 abstentions, Sanchez won with a simple majority in Congress. Sanchez and his PSOE party had to negotiate with the Unidas Podemos party to form a coalition after he had failed to earn the sufficient votes several times during the past year. Our correspondent Edu Marin has more from outside the parliament in Madrid.
So there were no surprises here in Madrid. Pedro Sanchez has been confirmed here in the parliament as the new Prime Minister of Spain. He got the simple majority he needed with 167 votes in favour, 165 against and 18 abstentions. The crucial factor here was the abstention of the Catalan Republican Left, the ERC, which reached an agreement with the Socialist Party and United Podemos to abstain in this vote. And that is what allowed the investiture of Pedro Sanchez to pass. The 5 members of the Basque Pro-Independence Party also abstained. There had been fears that one or other member of parliament might defy party discipline and upset the expected result, but that didn't happen. This will be the first coalition government ever in Spain, in this case between the Socialist Party and United Podemos. In the coming days, we'll learn who will be in the new cabinet. Some names have already emerged, including ministers from Podemos. It's almost certain that the General Secretary of Podemos, Pablo Iglesias, will be the new Deputy Prime Minister. Also in the coming days, Pedro Sanchez will go to the King as the first step in installing the new government. But the stability of his government will really depend on getting approval for its budget. They will have to negotiate with other parties to win this approval to be able to implement the social policies that they have promised.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has brought his Brexit deal back to Parliament as he seeks the country's departure from the European Union. This Tuesday, lawmakers began 3 days of debate on the withdrawal agreement bill. It's expected to pass as Johnson won a majority in the House of Commons in recent elections. Both the UK and European parliaments must ratify the deal before Britain's January 31st departure date, when a so-called transition phase to the end of the year will kick in.
By wishing a happy new year to you and
Russia's President Vladimir Putin has left the Syrian capital Damascus following an impromptu one-day official visit. Putin held bilateral talks with his Syrian counterpart Bashar al-Assad, where they reviewed the security situation in the country and discussed international issues, including the recent developments in the Middle East. A spokesperson for the Kremlin told journalists that during the meeting, President Assad expressed gratitude to Russia for the help it has provided in the fight against terrorism and the restoration of peace in the country. Libyan citizens have protested against the deployment of foreign troops in their land. They denounced foreign interference, raising concerns that the continued deployment of foreign troops in Libya will intensify conflicts. This comes after Turkey started sending troops to Libya to help the government of national accord fight General Khalifa Haftar's forces.
We fear that the security situation in the country will become dangerous and Libya will deteriorate after Turkey sends troops. We will be under colonialism and the country will be completely controlled by other forces. I'm scared that we will become homeless.
Meanwhile, Libyan and Algerian leaders met in Algiers to discuss the Tripoli conflict. The Libyan Prime Minister, Faiz al-Sarraj, accompanied by a delegation of officials, met the Algerian Premier Abdelaziz Jarrad and discussed the escalating conflict in Libya. Algeria, a neighbor to Libya, has repeatedly opposed military intervention in the Tripoli conflict, urging for a UN-backed political process to restore peace and security in the war-torn country. And in Tunisia, authorities have tightened border security along the eastern border with Libya, following the deadly attack on a military academy in Tripoli.
The army have the ability to block the entry of armed militants from Libya into Tunisia, and we hope that Libya could find a solution to the crisis as soon as possible.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.